and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down the DFS slate, the best bets, the line movement, all the stuff you need ahead of Sunday's Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Kyle, and I wanted to say, like, this is my race. The wife and I, we own 2 Toyotas, so this race kind of fits right into the.
You are an official Toyota owner.
Yes, so this race is for me. But I just want to say again, we've been talking about this on numerous occasions. Ryan Blaney, it's coming, folks. Like, it's coming.
Yep, qualifying's in the books. We're gonna talk. We're gonna make some DraftKings picks. We'll build a lineup. We'll do all that stuff. Before we do that, make sure you smash that thumbs up. Make sure you let us know down in the comments your favorite driver sub 9K this week. Who are you targeting? Who is making it in your lineups? If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It really does do a lot for the show. Spread it around. Tell your friends. Tell them to come check us out. A lot of people have been doing that, and the numbers are showing it. So we really appreciate all of your work, all of your efforts, all of your, clicks. It takes 2 seconds for you. It really does do a lot for us. So really, 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 really appreciate it. With that being said, Brian, let's jump in. Let's look at some DraftKings stuff with qualifying in the book, and we can build a lineup eventually. So let me share my screen here. Chase Elliott starting 15th, 10-5. Kyle Larson 21st, starting 10-2. They're both compelling. They're both really interesting. They're both really expensive. Are you using either, neither, or both?
I feel like at least one of those guys are going to be in most people's lineups, knowing where they're starting at. But it is interesting to note that they didn't really show speed in either practice or qualifying session. So it'll be interesting to see that come tomorrow what like the race speed is for these guys. I know Chase Elliott is somebody who's done really well here before. So starting 15th that for a car who traditionally runs near the front is a pretty good spot.
Yep. And as we saw last week, even when he really didn't have it, he was still able to pull a top 5 out, which helped people cash a lot of lineups, including me. So definitely both compelling options. We'll obviously have to see as we filter down what our options look like, what's going to make the most sense, what's going to be the best way to kind of attack the slate. We're looking at Chase Elliott being about 20% owned and Kyle Larson being about 25% owned, which is for them pretty low. So that could be some interesting ways because of the pricing to potentially get some value. So I don't think it's that crazy to get there. Head into the 9K range. Kyle Busch looked awesome. Obviously has a good track record in Richmond, starting 3rd. 9,900 could be a nice Dominator. I think Dominator is going to be huge this week, obviously with the amount of laps that we can potentially run. So that is something to consider, as well as Martin Truex, who is a guy I was in on prior to qualifying. We talked about it on the betting show. I don't know if I actually locked in a number with him though, so I have to look. I might have missed my window, and if I did, that is what it is. Ryan Blaney, as you mentioned, looked great. Sitting on the pole again, 9,400. Could just start the race, dominate from the jump, and be the reason why you cash. So that's another compelling option. Hamlin starting 13th, Logano starting 11th, and then William Byron starting 2nd. So I guess in this 9K range, what drivers are jumping out to you as someone you want to roster tomorrow?
Well, I think first and foremost, I talked about him at the top of the show, and that's Ryan Blaney. I know he's starting on pole, so he offers a lot of potential for losing points. But, this is a guy who he qualified on pole. I think it was either Phoenix or Las Vegas or one of those 2 races. I can't remember. And, he still wound up finishing, I believe it was inside the top 5 for that race. So I think this is a guy who has shown the ability now at these 2 shorter tracks this season where he hasn't traditionally ran well, that maybe this new car has kind of changed his driving style. And so he's a guy who I like to potentially win. I already had an outright on him, as you saw earlier in the week. So starting first at 9,400 with the potential of him jumping out to the lead early and staying there for, 60 to 70 laps, like those dominator points are going to be huge. And if he can somehow find his way back to the front, come the end of the race and potentially win, like that's going to be huge for getting him at 9,400.
Yep, I think picking the right guy and or two guys to start the race to have a chance to dominate from the jump is going to be critical. If you take Blaney and he dominates from the start, it's going to be hard to cash without him. If Blaney has issues and Truex jumps up or Kyle Busch jumps up,
Yep.
you're going to need one of those guys in your lineup. So this is going to be a really interesting range, and obviously you're spending a good amount of cash. So if these guys don't come through, it's going to be hard for you to do really well. So we'll have to figure out kind of where we want to go in that range. We'll dive down into the 8Ks. Chastain looked good again, starting 8th. I did,
boss, baby.
Yeah, there was an interesting Bob Pockris tweeted out a nice video of Kevin Harvick talking about Chastain and kind of some of the steps he's taken as a driver. He's gone from a guy that obviously is going to do everything in his power to win races, to take advantage of anything he can take advantage of. But he's being a lot smarter about it this year.
Yes.
And Harvick saying, he's doing the right things. He's still doing Chastain stuff. He's just not going overboard. He's not Ricky Bobbying his way and ending up in the back of the pack or on the side of the track. So
you mean he's not Eric Jonesing every week?
Exactly. So I thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting point from a veteran who's talking about, the young crew of drivers in this sport. And the future is bright for NASCAR. They have some really, really talented drivers, including Chastain. I don't think last year or 2 years ago people would have lumped him into that category, but he's in that William Byron, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney group. Like, he's there.
And one more thing, this is kind of off topic, but I think it's really cool to see that a lot of these younger drivers, they're not afraid to switch paint. They're not afraid of contact. Like, they're going to do what's necessary to get the wins.
Yep.
It was exemplified today in the Xfinity race with Ty Gibbs overcoming John Hunter Nemechek on the last lap, where he basically moved him out of the way, like literally physically moved Hunter Nemechek's car out of the way to win the race. And I think like the old school rules, kind of like what we're seeing in baseball, those are kind of being thrown out the window. And now it's becoming like every man for themselves. And as long as you're not intentionally wrecking people, we're going to see a little bit more aggressiveness coming from these drivers. And I think that's really going to be good for drawing in more fans.
Yeah, we saw last week too. Bowman and Chastain weren't afraid to move Dinger out of the way and go get that win. And obviously we've seen with these new cars, if you can get out in front, it's really hard to get caught. So, people are going to take advantage, and if they see an opportunity to get to the front, they're going to do it and they're going to stay there. 8K range, a lot of interesting names. Christopher Bell's there once again, qualifying strong, looks sort of good. Is this finally the week?
Dude, like he's good. It's just again, he just has to put together a full race. I mean, we saw it last week. He finished great at COTA. If he can do that again this week, we're looking at a guy potentially top 5 at 8,700. And Toyotas traditionally have ran really well here.
Yep. Alex Bowman starting 28th is going to be pretty popular, but I think is very much somebody that should be a part of your core. Is going to have a chance to move forward. Obviously won this race last year over Kyle Busch. So, has comfort at this track, does have that elite upside. And over the span of 400 laps could move to top 5 consideration and really do a lot for your DFS lineup. So I think he is somebody that, while popular, is going to be worthy of that. Chase Briscoe, baby, starting fourth. I liked him. I like, this is a guy that's making a little bit difference. I'm curious to see when we flip over and look at the betting odds where his numbers are sitting now. But from a DraftKings perspective, not sure I'll get there. Would be an interesting way to, if you want to look for a dominator, though. Could be an interesting name. Obviously, he's really taking strides this year as well. And at 8,400, you could do a lot if you want to save some money.
Yeah, no, Briscoe looked really good, both practice and qualifying, and he's another one of those young drivers like we were talking about who's really taking advantage of these new cars and these short tracks and the road courses he's really good at. So, at 8,400, maybe he surprises and he's the dominator. That would be a huge win. Like if you're in a big tournament style play and you're looking for some deviation, that's kind of a good route to go there.
Yeah, he'd be a great partner for Alex Bowman too, as a way to kind of get off some of that ownership if you want to go into some GPPs. Speaking of Kevin Harvick, looked really good again. Finished in the top, starting in the top 10, 8K could make some sense.
He's
Once
just
again,
Mr. Consistently mediocre, like not great, but he's good.
he's going to be super solid. He's not going to kill you. And it's going to be a pretty nice target as we drop into the 7K range. Kurt Busch, Daniel Suarez, Almirola look good. Eric Jones starting 5th. We can't wait for him to crash out towards the end. Austin Cindric didn't perform as well as I liked, but I still have optimism for him. Starting 20th, 7,200. I think he could be a guy that moves up, does pretty well, and ends up being a really solid performer on Sunday.
Yeah, Cindric, the guy below him, the Battle of the Austins is on this week. Both of them kind of underperformed during qualifying, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of adjustments they make. And then Chris Buescher, 18th. Yep. He was a really big long shot to top 10 this week, but he showed some speed in practice. So I think that there's a good chance that maybe he makes a few adjustments come before tomorrow's race, and we'll see him kind of creeping into that top 10.
Yep. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we have some cheaper options. Anyone sub 7K that you're pounding the table for that you think could make some sense. Obviously, we'll build a lineup here in a minute, but Bubba's 5,900.
I was just gonna say that's a really good price on Bubba Wallace. Although he's kind of sucked here, but he is in a Toyota who run traditionally well at these tracks, and my one worry about guys starting that far back in the pack is that if they don't have the pace early, they run the risk of getting lapped numerous times as the race goes on, and then you're just basically you're screwed for the rest of the day.
Harrison Burton right below him, I think could make some sense. Look pretty solid in practice, look pretty solid in qualifying. Starting 17th, so he's up far enough where he should stay on the lead lap for the majority of the race. Maybe he squeezes out a top 12 and ends up not being that bad of a play. 5,700. There is some options. Nothing you absolutely want to pound the table for, but those are two guys below 6K that could make some sense. Shall we build a lineup?
Yeah, let's do it.
I will let you go first. Who is the number one driver that has to be in our lineup this week?
I feel like a lot of people are going to skip over him because he is starting on pole. I'm confident in Ryan Blaney this week. I think this is the race that he gets his dub, and that would be huge for our lineup.
And for anybody that's new to the show, we try and build a GPP lineup that we think can take down the big prize. So, we might not take the big names. We might not, dive in on ownership, but that is kind of our thoughts and kind of how we build this lineup. I'm going to double tap a Dominator early and take Truex. I think he's a good value. I think he could be really strong to start the race. And I think both these guys could be, top 3 to 5 finishers come the end of the race. So that is who I'm going with.
Yeah, no, Truex is a guy he absolutely crushes here. Between him and Kyle Busch, it's kind of a toss-up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, getting in on one of those Toyota guys early towards the front of the pack makes a ton of sense.
Who's next?
Oh, man.
I think we have to throw Bowman in there, starting 28th.
I was just gonna say, like
500.
That's like a name in bold as opposed to everyone else with that 28th starting position. That's almost a must.
Let's see what else we can do then. If we're gonna need to save some salary, we can find some value. So as we talked about, Bubba and Harrison Burton could make some sense below 6K. let's see here. Justin Haley,
I was just gonna
6,300.
say, so Justin Haley, I was doing some quick little reconnaissance on him in the Xfinity series. His last 3 races there that were run in 2020 and 2021, he had 2 second place finishes and a 6th. So this is a guy who has pretty good history at this track. Yeah, it's not in the Cup Series, but I mean, Colleague is not a crap car. Starting near the back of the pack at 6,300, a good chance to move up possibly inside the top 20.
Yeah.
That is great value.
What do you think about your guy, Austin Dillon? I know we're going head to head on the Battle of the Austins, but Dillon starting 25th. This is still a guy I think that has a reasonable shot to top 10. 7K, could move up, could have a nice race, and figure stuff out come Sunday.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, honestly, I think both of those guys in terms of DraftKings offer some tremendous values where they are, knowing that they're both, quick cars.
Yep.
It's really going to come into play the kind of adjustments that they're able to make. Because I heard today that they're actually not able to do much to the cars. They can't change out shocks. They can't change out anything other than maybe making like camber adjustments or, toe on the tires and a bunch of other nuanced stuff that even me as a novice fan doesn't quite understand fully. But there's not a lot to do. And with the speed that they kind of lacked, it'll be interesting to see if they can make those moves.
So I think for the final spot, there's a few names that jump out to me. I'm curious to see where your head goes. But Chastain starting 8th. We both really like him. He's obviously been incredible. Christopher Bell could be a nice way. Obviously a little bit cheaper, starting 1 spot back. I think ownership could fall more to Chastain and give Christopher Bell.
Based on recent success, yes.
So right now, Christopher Bell is projected for about 12% ownership, and Chastain is about 30%. So yeah, like what I was saying, I think that could make some sense. I think Harvick is also really interesting. Obviously starting 7th, but he's 8K. Could be a nice, like, sustainable guy that doesn't really crush you. And then obviously we shoot for the moon with some of our other options. Pardon me. What name jumps out? What name, of those names, is there a name you really like in that group, or is there somebody else that is garnering your attention?
Well, I mean, Christopher Bell, I'm riding his, or I'm hitched to his wagon the entire season. I'm not jumping off yet. I think he's a tremendous driver. He just has run into some pretty bad luck. And if the ownerships are projecting as they are, like, it makes too much sense to go to Bell as opposed to Chastain.
Yep. And as we're talking about, Bowman's going to be really popular. So we want to find ways to be a little bit different. Truex is going to be pretty popular. Blaney is going to be pretty popular. Right now, the highest projected ownerships, Bowman at 42%, Truex at 41%, Blaney at 36%, and Chastain at 31%. Those are all the only 4 guys that are going to be projected at 30+% ownership. So that's something to think about. And I think Christopher Bell gives us a little bit of difference, and obviously leaving a little bit on the table is another way to kind of differentiate yourself. So I think this is our lineup. I have Blaney, Truex, Bowman, Haley, Dillon, and Christopher Bell. I like it a lot.
Please no crashing early.
I'm going to do I'm probably going to take this lineup and kind of tweak it and sub a couple different guys in. And I'm also going to try and do a more expensive lineup, but we'll see tomorrow morning how that pans out. Shall we flip over and look at some betting odds, Brian?
Yes. There is a lot going on.
We got a lot going on. We have some books that are really moving drivers. We have some books that are not really moving drivers. Pardon me. Let's talk at the top. There's a lot going on here. As you mentioned, Ryan Blaney on the poll. He is 8-1 at DraftKings. He's 9-1 at MGM, but he's 13-1 at FanDuel. He's 12-1 at PointsBet. I guess if you really like Blaney, like Brian does, shop it. Find the number, because with NASCAR, it's clear that some books are getting money on drivers and others aren't, and or they just don't care to move it enough. Either way, get the best value you can, because there is value to be found.
Oh yeah. And 2, we've seen it each of the last 2 weeks. We've hit we've hit an outright by kind of spraying the board a little bit. And so, finding a couple of drivers that you think have a really good shot and just doing, a half unit play, or, if a guy that you're most confident on, like me with Blaney this week, probably do a full unit on him, and then coming back with a quarter unit or a half unit on guys with a little bit longer odds.
Yeah. I still like Larson at 10-1. If you can get MGM, I don't know that I like it as much at 8.
Hey,
but
Chase Elliott at 11-1 on DraftKings. That's something that if I had access to DraftKings, I would probably be betting that, knowing he opened the week at 8.5.
Yeah, and I would look at a top 5 there, because at DraftKings you can get that. We'll look at that here in a second, but I think that makes sense. If you can still get 10-1 on Truex, I don't hate that at all. I think he has a very real shot to win this race. Let's keep going down. These numbers are all a lot more stagnant. Chastain at 14 is the number I could get behind. 11 and 12 is fine, but I don't like it nearly as much.
The thing about Chastain I'll say about this particular race is knowing his traditionally aggressive style of racing, that if he's not near the front coming towards, the latter half of the race, he is the kind of guy that would get in a wreck while being uber aggressive and trying to make moves. So for him on an outright this week is a little bit worrisome. Maybe the market, like a top 5 or top 3 on him, for me, would be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, but if you're worried about him crashing, like, I'd rather just shoot for the moon than worry about him trying to top 5, because if he's
but I
not
think
there,
you can recover it to get there, and
That's true.
maybe you make enough damage to where you can't quite catch up to the front guy, or you don't have the grip towards the back end of the
I know
race.
Bowman's starting way back, but 20-1 is a number that is kind of interesting on him, especially the way they're pricing drivers. I think it could make some sense if you want to take a little bit of a longer shot.
And then I got to point out Christopher Bell. Okay, for as crappy as he's been this season, the books have not moved on him being from like anywhere from 11 to about 15-1 every week, regardless of practice, regardless of qualifying. The only way his odds ever move are shorter. So, like, that just shows you what the sports books and the experts think of what Christopher Bell can do on the track.
Yeah. So from our show on Wednesday, I had 3 outrights. I had Blaney at 14. Obviously can't get that number, but there's some, 13's fine. Chase Briscoe, I have at 20. I'd still bet him at 19, 18, even 16. I don't hate that.
Yeah.
And then I have Tyler Reddick. I got it at 14. I think I'm going to double down and take it at 18, because that's just a good number. That's some decent line movement. Something I did not think we would see. So I might go a half unit on 14, half unit on 18.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take my own advice, and to the betting card for the show, I am gonna add a half unit on Chase Elliott at that 11-1 number from DraftKings at the moment. To me, that's just too good a value to pass up.
Yep. I think that makes sense. I'm gonna add the Marty Party at 10-1 too. I think that's a number that I could get behind.
And just so everyone knows, because I was kind of on Logano last week, he's probably going to win the race. So if you like him, go to DraftKings 12-1. I mean, that's a good payout. I'm not touching that.
Let's keep scrolling down. Harvick, not going to hit him on the outright market. Almirola, this is a more Almirola number, and he's not really starting that much farther back than we were excited about him. He was kind of like in the teens and 20s when we talked about it, I believe. 33 is not terrible. I think this is a place where he can really win. So if you want a little bit longer shot, Cindric at 50, I would absolutely bet that.
I mean, that's like a quarter unit play for sure. I mean, like we said, you spray the market, and if one of those guys hits.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Dinger at 75-1 is a number that, even for like a tenth of a unit, just for the hell of it, knowing that he raced here today in the Xfinity Series, he ran okay. He was inside the top 5, like.
Yeah.
And then obviously that means at DK, you could probably get his placements at a really good value as well.
Yep. We'll flip over and look at that here just in a second. Busher 125 is the number I like too. We talked about him a little bit. It was like 60, 70 in a lot of places, and I was like, but at 125, I could find myself getting there.
It's too bad Ricky Stenhouse is not going to have the pace, but 300 to 1?
Haley at 300 to 1. If you really want to take a shot,
Yeah.
300 to 1 on Justin Haley, I could do that.
I mean, he's got to start. He's got to go through the entire field to get up there, and that's going to be hard.
300 to 1, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's flip over to DraftKings. Look at those placings. Obviously, DraftKings number has Blaney at 8 to 1, so everything's going to be based off of that. So you can't really like you want to shop around for top 3s, top 5s, top 10s. Christopher Bell plus 135 to top 5, 330 to top 3. Those aren't terrible. We can look at what FanDuel has here shortly to see if they have a better number. Briscoe at 16, 450 to top 3, 2 to 1 to top 5. What's Cindric? He's 50 here, so he's 5 to 1 to top 5. Okay, that's basically the same. We'll flip over and see what his top 10 market is. Any names that are jumping out to you in the top 3 or top 5 market?
Well, I mean, like, I already bet it earlier in the week, so that just goes to show you, like, I had Blaney top 5 at plus 160, Blaney top 3 at plus 370. Like, I keep trying to tell you guys, yeah, it might not happen. You got to bet him now ahead of qualifying. So, like, for him, obviously, I'm not touching the top 5 number. The top 3 number I can still get behind.
Yeah,
it's a little bit short for that. I'd rather just go to the outright, but
let's see what the top 10 market looks like. If there's any interesting names. Austin Dillon plus 125. I don't hate. We'll flip over and look at FanDuel because sometimes they have better numbers. But if you only have DraftKings, it's not a terrible number. Cindric at plus 150. I like a lot. Because it was minus 105 when we talked about it earlier in the week. So plus 150 is nice value.
Yeah, and we've seen it already this year on numerous occasions. Like practice and qualifying hasn't necessarily told the story of the race come Sunday. So you can't take too much out of what we've saw today and what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. You can't use it as fact. I mean, obviously you want to, see what people did and take advantage of it where you can. But there's that just because they didn't perform as well as you expected doesn't mean that they won't perform well when it comes to Sunday's race. Let's flip over and look at the top 10 market over at FanDuel. See if we can't find some better numbers. Chastain minus 250. Don't love that. Cindric still minus 105. So, plus 150 is a significant number move. So
honestly, I'm of the belief that FanDuel does not move their lines. They just remove them off the board from qualifying and then just repost them the same as they were.
In case a car like blows up or something, I don't know.
Yeah, well, because like for instance, Chris Buescher on DraftKings at top 10 is now plus 250, I believe, and at FanDuel he's still plus 550. I mean,
yeah,
like if you have
value right there.
This is why you got to shop the market.
Chris Buescher top 10 at plus 550 is going on my card.
Yeah, I think too on FanDuel, the guy 2 spots ahead of him, Justin Haley at plus 410. That's a number that I can get behind, even though he is starting so far back on the grid.
Yeah, well, he's 5 to 1 over here, so even better number.
Okay, that's being added to mine. Haley top 10.
Yeah, that's why you have to shop it, folks. That is why you have to shop it.
That's just incredible, like how different these odds get posted. I mean,
yep, it's based on the money they're getting and what their guys feel. And I think it's not like that's the thing about betting something like NASCAR instead of golf or even football. Like the amount of money they get on other sports versus NASCAR is they get a lot more. So the number naturally gets to a spot where it's supposed to be. Whereas NASCAR, it's all over the place. And if you can find an advantage somewhere, you have to jump on it. Do we have any props besides finishing position? Okay, here we go. I wanted some matchups. Here we go. Better matchups. Okay.
FanDuel matchup odds are crap. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just gonna go out and say it. Like, They're just weird.
Yeah.
The juice is weird on those.
Yep. It's all about that money, son. Let's go over here and look at the driver props. Here we go. This is interesting considering where they're starting and how they looked. So my best bet from Wednesday was Blaney over Bell minus 105. It is now minus
Nice.
130. So that's something to think about. That's why getting on some of those numbers early is definitely the move. Chastain I still kind of like over Hamlin. It's a decent price. Briscoe over Harvick. I think actually I did bet that. So I bet Briscoe over Harvick at minus 110. It's now plus money. So that's, I like it even more now. And at the Battle of the Austins, I think that's the numbers we had, right?
Yeah. I gave you the even money, and I'm laying the minus 120. Now, right
juice,
there,
baby.
that's a matchup I'm adding to my card for a full unit. Kurt Busch plus 145 over Eric Jones.
Yep.
Just knowing Eric Jones
will lead the race for like
on the last lap
95% of it. Yeah. And then at the last second, Kurt Busch will finish like 13th and Eric Jones will finish 33rd.
Exactly. So yes, that's going on there.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that call a lot. Yeah, this is also interesting. Getting the juice with Tyler Reddick. I hate Tyler Reddick this week, so I don't hate those.
They've definitely added since before.
Yeah, DraftKings seems better about adding drivers and adding matchups and adding that kind of stuff. Especially with now that March Madness and Final Four and stuff are kind of locked in. They have a little more time for other things like NASCAR. So, all right, Brian. We talked some DraftKings. We talked some betting. Once again, if you've made it this far, really appreciate it. Smash that thumbs up. Hit the like button. Let us know your favorite driver below 9K. Is that what I said?
Yeah, 9K.
Below 9K. And we'll hit you with our best bets heading into the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond. Brian Twining, what's your best bet from Wednesday? What's your best bet today?
So on Wednesday, I talked about it, and I probably should have waited because I could have got better odds at DraftKings, but it was Austin Dillon to top 10 at FanDuel at plus 115 for 2 units. I'm still on that, and I'll probably add another unit from DraftKings at plus 125 just to go all in. And for today, I talked about him as the value has gotten a lot better, especially on DraftKings. And for my best bet, I'm going to go with Chase Elliott to top 5 at minus 110 for 2 units. That is just too good of a number for me not to bet.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think that's a really nice number. So as I mentioned, my best bet from Wednesday or Thursday, whenever we recorded, it always moves a little bit. Blaney over Bell minus 105. Obviously, I've gotten a better number on that. I'm going to go Austin Cindric to top 10 at plus 150. I like minus 105. I don't know that I love minus 105 as much now, but getting plus 150 is a number that I love. So I will be taking that for 2 units and take that to the bank. For our outrights, I have Blaney at 14. I have Briscoe at 20. I have Reddick at 14 and at 18. I think I'm going to add those Reddick head-to-heads too against Hamlin, against I'll have to look. I'll add those after the show. There was Hamlin and somebody else. I'm going to put both those on the card. And then I have Truex at 10, and then I have Cindric at 40. Brian, what outrights do you have currently on the card?
So at the moment, I got Christopher Bell from earlier in the week at 14-1 for a half a unit. Blaney at 14-1 for a half a unit. I will be adding the 13-1 number for a full unit. And then obviously the Chase Elliott at 11-1 for a half a unit.
Yeah. So I'm adding Reddick over Byron plus 115 and Reddick over Hamlin at plus 110. Just because, if I'm betting him outright, I think there's a reasonable shot that he could finish top 5, top 10, and finish ahead of Hamlin and or Byron. And at plus money, I will take both of those very, very much so. My voice kind of gone, but hopefully it'll be okay for the pod. Hopefully it'll be back fully for the next episode. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Appreciate all your support, and we'll talk to you guys next time.